Hello and welcome back to Finding Your Second Wind. This is the Redemption Report. Now you might be wondering what this is and how it's a little bit different to what you've seen in the recent 2 episodes of the podcast where I've interviewed 2 different guests, and that's fair enough. Normally we do sit down with a guest and get into their story, but today we're taking the wheel solo and it's a special edition that we're calling the Redemption Report. Now, the reason for this is because every now and then you need to reset, refresh, and catch up on some of the things that you missed. So this gives me an opportunity to do that. I've had loads of messages from the past 2 episodes with Louis Curry and Corey Davidson. So I want to get into some of the comments and some of the messages as well. I put out on the Instagram at FY Second Wind, I put out a little questionnaire for you at home listening to tell me your story and what your second wind is, that moment for you where you got a rejuvenation to go again. So we've got a few messages to go through on that as well. So later on, we're going to get into that, and that's going to be dedicated to you and your second wind, where we go through your messages, your voice notes, your videos even. So send me through. We can listen to your voice notes on the show. We can watch your videos on the show and react to it as well. So if you want to get involved, that's a really good way to do so. That's coming up later on in the show. Before that, we're going to get into some current affair news sports stories in Australia. There's a lot in Australia. Australia loves their sport, and there's always something to talk about. And for this edition of the Redemption Report, we're going to talk about Nick Kyrgios. He's in the news again, and we're going to get into that story as well. It's quite an interesting one. It's quite controversial. So I want to talk about that. But before all of that, we're going to do a deep dive and a full redemption report into someone who could be Australia's best athlete ever. Something that I didn't actually know about this person's story until just recently. So I want to shed some light on that. They suffered grief, they suffered loss, they suffered serious illness, and also adoption. It's a crazy story. It's an Australian world champion surfer. So stick around for that. But first, I do need to say, please subscribe, follow the channel, share it with your friends. It really helps a lot, helps the channel grow, and gets the name out there. What I'm trying to do with this show is shed some light on the stuff that isn't the glitz and the glam, stuff that doesn't really get spoken about a lot. And everyone's got a story. Everyone does. Even you listening, you have a story of, a moment where you suffered a setback and you've overcome that. And you should be super proud of that as well. And you should be talking about it. But we don't. For some reason, we don't. So that's what this podcast is. So please follow, please subscribe, share it with friends and everything. Get it out there. And I also want to note I am outside as well, in the outside studio. So bear with some background noises. There's lots of birds nearby, cars going past. If you can hear anything, I guess it just adds to the whole ambience of the show. All right. So strap in. It's a packed show. Let's get into it. Finding your second wind. All right. When we talk about sports and redemption stories, I don't know about you, but I do always seem to think of like a last-minute winner, a late comeback, or a last-ditch tackle when it just seemed impossible to get there. I guess that's maybe my footballing background. But what happens when the comeback begins off the pitch? Something that's a bit more mental. Anyway, this is where we look at Layne Beachley. Now, if you don't know who Layne Beachley is, she is a 7-time world surfing champion, the first female to win 7 titles, and the only surfer, male or female, to win 6 consecutive world titles. Now, that is incredible. And if you're like me, you didn't know about that until just recently. Like, that's an incredible achievement in itself. Now, if you just watch the highlight reels, you think, wow, that's just like a stretch of absolute dominance where she conquered everything, made history, was just insane. But the real story isn't just winning those titles. It's what happened out of the surf and what she did out of the surf to be able to achieve that. So to understand Layne Beachley's second wind, you have to look at where her motivation and her drive came from in the first place. If you remember on a previous episode with Corey Davidson, he mentioned your why. What is your why? Well, if we look at Layne Beachley, she was born in 1972 to a 17-year-old mother and was given up for adoption at 6 weeks old. Pretty heavy stuff. And she was raised in Manly. And tragically, her adopted mother passed away when she was 6. She was then brought up by her adopted father. And 2 years later, after her adopted mother passed away, she was then told that she was adopted. So as a young kid, just carrying that weight around and complete loss of identity and everything like that just creates quite a heavy narrative. And according to my research, Layne Beachley has spoken pretty openly about having that belief that if her birth mother gave her away, then she has to be the absolute best in the world at something to deserve love. Now, that isn't just like a burning fire to compete. That is survival. That is like a survival mechanism built on that grief and desperate need for validation. I guess that gives a bit of backstory about how she brought that relentless mentality to the surf scene. And she competed against boys and turned pro at 16 years of age. By 20, she was ranked 6th in the world. And I guess when you're running on that anger, that trauma for so long and working so hard, your body's going to cash in that check and send you a bill, as it said. So in 1993, a week after she won her first championship tour event, her body broke down and she was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. If you don't know what chronic fatigue syndrome is, well, I'll just give you a brief explanation according to my research here. It's a complex, long-term, multi-system illness that severely limits a person's ability to carry out daily activities. So it's profound exhaustion, and it's drastically different to normal tiredness, and it doesn't improve with rest or sleep. It's quite a frustrating one. I've heard about it before, and there's no real recovery road, as it were. You know, typically for a hamstring or like a soft tissue injury, there's recovery steps and roads that you go through. But for something like this, it has quite a mental effect on your body as well. So it can cause brain fog, memory issues, difficulty concentrating, and slowed info processing. So suddenly, an elite athlete building her entire career on outworking everyone else was completely immobilized, bedbound, exhausted, and dealing with that intense mental darkness and depression, because it sends you into that depressive state. She managed to return, but 2 years later, the chronic fatigue syndrome hit her again, and she was out with that for 2 years. So it's not just a weekly, monthly thing. It took her out for 2 whole years. So now, this is that point where the story breaks. You know, you either stop, give up, or you manage to find that energy and that motivation to go again. And for Layne Beachley, surfing was the only thing that she used to cope with everything that happened before her surfing career. And it was just taken away. She was forced to sit with herself, and she realized that she was a bit of a control freak and burning herself out just to prove something. So her second win didn't really come from doubling down in the gym and pushing harder. Like a lot of stories happen, like a lot of injuries that people suffer. It just means you just got to get stronger and you got to work harder. And that's what's interesting about Layne Beachley's story is it's the complete opposite. She had to surrender, let go of everything, let go of that control and fix her health. Change that relationship with surfing in her head, because before it was that need to prove her self-worth, and she needed to change that to being a bit kinder, a bit more self-accepting. So once that shift in mentality happened, the floodgates opened. She was back surfing, and from 1998 to 2003, she won 6 consecutive world championships. And then 3 years after that, claiming her 7th, which is just insane. You know, you talk about a redemption. She didn't just get back to surfing, which would have been a crazy story in itself. She came back and she dominated the world, which is crazy. It's just that's insane. But that is really the heart of it, is never giving up. It's not about never failing or, you know, never suffering any setbacks. It's about what you do when you suffer those setbacks. I guess that is the finding your second win. It's making that choice to get up, dust yourself off, and go again. So there you have it. That is the first installment of the Redemption Report. So later on, we're going to get into your listener messages. But before that, we're going to talk about something that's in the news in sport in Australia. If you're an Australian who follows any sport, you'll know who Nick Kyrgios is. If you don't know who Nick Kyrgios is, he's an Australian tennis star who's quite polarizing. He's either loved or he's either hated, and he always manages to find himself in the news, and he's done that again. This time for something that you probably wouldn't associate him with, just based off how opinionated about it he is online. Now, to give you some context, Nick Kyrgios has tested positive for cocaine in his system, and this happened in competition on June 22nd, 2026, at an ATP 250 event in Mallorca in Spain. And he's just been suspended, provisionally suspended, about a week or two ago by the International Tennis Integrity Agency. So because cocaine is listed as the World Anti-Doping Agency's prohibited list, that is why he is serving a ban. It can carry up to a 4-year ban. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is because he's come out online. Now, if I can find it, I don't know if it's been taken off internet. He posted a story on Instagram basically confessing before it even made the news. So he wanted to be the person to break it to his fans. And this is what he said. I made a huge mistake and I take full responsibility for it. Years of injuries have taken a physical and mental toll. Coming to terms with nearing the end of my career has been difficult. This is a wake-up call. He also went on to say that he's going to take a step away from social media and just really focus on himself and the people around him. And I don't know, I've seen him pop up on my Instagram for some not tennis-like things recently, so I think that might be best just in general. But yeah, I mean, I do like that he's kind of just taken full ownership of it. And I think that's a little bit different to what some athletes have done in the past, where they go quiet and just hope it breezes over. But he's gotten ahead of it, and you know, I quite like it. Now, he is receiving a lot of backlash online, and I'm not going to pile on. This is quite a neutral report on it, because I'm interested to see what happens. But there's been a lot of backlash, and it's because he spent years before this being quite vocal online towards doping athletes. So I think there was one, Yannick Sinner, world number 1 or world number 2 at the moment. He got tested with I can't actually remember exactly, but it was the smallest amount of cocaine in his system. It was like 1/1,000,000th of a milligram or something like that, where it was like the tiniest amount. And Nick Kyrgios has been quite outspoken and like the moral police about it, calling them out online, and also Swiatek as well, I think. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. The female tennis star as well. So people were kind of like calling him a hypocrite and all those things. So what is next for Nick Kyrgios? That is the question. That's what I'm most interested in. Is this going to be a case of where he breaks and he retires and we don't see of Nick Kyrgios ever again, or can he bounce back? He's had wrist reconstructions, 4 knee surgeries. He's barely played over the past 2 years as well. He's done a lot of doubles matches, and also he did the Battle of the Sexes as well, which is a bit more of like a for show tennis. He's becoming a bit more for show. I mean, he always kind of was, but is this the final chapter? Is this the final chapter for Nick Kyrgios? I don't know. He is a very talented tennis player, so I hope not, but it could be. And that's what I'm interested in, is can he bounce back from this? Maybe it's good, the public hiatus that he's going on. And he's taken some time away from the social media where he's so prolific on. Maybe that's going to do him good, and he's going to come back even stronger. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of this report on him, and it brings us to that core theme of when he is flat on his back. He is at that rock bottom. So what can he do? The thing about it that I do like is something like this, that comeback, it does require that genuine accountability. And I don't know him personally, and I know a lot of people probably wouldn't agree with it, but I think by what he did and getting out ahead of it on social media, I feel like that is like a genuine accountability. And, that's a good first step. Let me know what you think is going to happen with Nick Kyrgios. If you agree, if you disagree, leave a comment down below. Get on the social media and send me a message or comment on one of these clips. But yeah, he is he's aging, and he's had a lot of injuries. But yeah, I'm really invested in this story and interested to see what happens. All right, coming up next, your listener messages. All right, it's time to open the floor up to you and hear your stories for a brand new segment that I like to call My Second Wind, where we hear from you. We've all had those moments in sport or in everyday life where everything seems to fall apart at once. It's really weird how that happens. But more importantly, I want to hear about how you turned it around. And as I mentioned at the start of the show, we don't talk about that enough, I don't think. We sort of see the finished product, and we rarely see the journey that leads to it. And it's only the people closest to you that do see it. Everyone else just sees that finished product. So we want to praise it. So that's what I want this to be anyway. I want you to be able to get involved, send me your messages, leave a voice note. We can listen to it and play it live for one of these redemption report shows, or even a video of if something happened to you and it's like you've managed to capture that moment. Send it through and we can react to it live as well. Okay, let's get into the first message. This one comes in from Rai.Doz. And he says that he broke his sternum in the gym. And he came back 2 years later and is now crushing his personal records. See, that is just like perfect, isn't it? He's broken his sternum, which I don't even know how you do that, but he's managed to then come back to the very place where he broke it and is beating all of his personal records with all his lifting. So props to him. Well done. Love to hear it. So that's what I mean. I'm sure there's people that know Rye.does and they never knew he broke his sternum. They just see him in the gym smashing weights. Another one here. This one comes from James_Joy73. When my 2 kids were born, it gives you a different type of motivation in life. Yeah, you're so right, James. I'm the same. I've got 2 kids, and it gives you that second wind in life. Like, you want to work harder for them. You just want to be able to provide for them and give them the best life. And it changes your whole mentality, your whole mindset. I still remember driving home from the hospital after my first was born and just realizing, like, wow, I have to drive so safe. You know, you're putting someone else first, and yeah, it just had like a whole mentality shift for me. So I can relate. No, thanks for your message. All right, I also wanted to get into some of the comments as well. So I've tried to reply to everyone on the videos, the latest 2 interviews, but I do want to just like bring some of them to light as well. So this one here is from the Corey Davison episode, and yeah, that one got so much like good feedback from everyone around me and Corey as well. So I know a lot of his family loved it. Yeah, he sort of told me that they all listened and loved hearing his story all told in one package in a way. Anyway, so this comment here says, I've known Corey for a couple years now, and from the get-go, I thought he was sound. I had no idea some of the hardships he endured, and he still carries himself so well. Lesser things would turn a man into a big ball of negativity. Big love to Corey. I mean, that just says it all, doesn't it? He's so true. Corey's story was incredible. Went through so much, and he is one of the like happiest people I know. You know, it's just crazy how that works. So yeah, thank you for your comment. That was Jay Devereaux, I believe that's how you say it. So thanks for your comment. Thanks for your engagement on all the videos. It's just great to have people listening and talking about it in the comments. It's so cool, and it's what it's all about. Is just sharing these powerful stories and hopefully inspiring some people as well. Next one here is from the Louis Curie episode. It says, I can totally relate. There's no mates in football in this country. Unfortunately, have to teach our kids to be a team player, but there's no team player or players. It's every boy for themselves in reality. That was from Michael DeMeglio. And I wanted to talk about this because it sparked some debates in the dressing room, because I've thought this before, but I've also seen that there can be mates in football. Now, the reason why it is true is because you're all fighting for spots on the team. There's only 11 starting positions, and everyone wants those, but there's too many players in the team. So there's that as a factor. But then also, there's also like high turnover in teams as well, where you're not there for long. You're maybe there for a year or 2 years, and you move on and you sort of make new friends in football. So I know I've made friends at teams who I thought, these are good friends of mine, and I haven't spoken to them since I left that club. But then I've also stayed in touch with a good few people who I would say are my mates, and so I have made friends in football. So yeah, I wanted to bring that one up because that sparked some debate and everything like that, and I just wanted to put my opinion on it as well, where I totally get where he was coming from when he said no mates in football, but I also believe that there can be mates in football, no friends in football. So that wraps up this listener section of the show. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning into the Redemption Report. I know it's a little bit different. We will be getting back to interviews soon. Just struggling to tie down dates with guests, but we have some really, really good names coming up for you. I don't know if I want to give too many details just in case they do cancel and then it looks like a false promise. So I won't. But they are from different sports, so it's not just football. And they've played at the top level in the world of that sport as well. So stay tuned for those. They'll be coming up later, but thank you for tuning into the Redemption Report on Finding Your Second Wind. Leave a like, subscribe, follow, share, do all those things. It really helps. And also send me your messages of your story. I want to hear them. And maybe we can make this Redemption Report more frequent, as frequent as you like. Let me know what you think as well. All right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in to Finding Your Second Wind. See you next time.
Finding your second wind.